Hello there. Today I wanted to take a look at a white wine from southern France. This is Collioure, so we're near Perpignan, and Collioure is an appellation for white and red wines that is found near Perpignan on the coast, and it overlaps with Banyuls, the fortified wine that's produced in the area. And a lot of the characteristics of the vineyards are very similar. So you have really steep slopes of brown schist, often terraced, and in general the grape varieties are based on Grenache of its different kinds as well, as we'll see in a second. Clos de Paulilles, historic property, founded by the Bernadi family in 1800, evidently, and currently owned by the Cazes family, but they only bought the estate in 2012. So their history dates back to Michel Caze starting a domain in Rivesaltes, or buying a domain in Rivesaltes, in 1895, and today Lionel, I believe is 5th generation on from Michel, runs their properties, both Clos de Paulilles and in Rivesaltes. So quite a historic property, and quite pioneering at times as well. They claimed in 1975 to be the first producer to produce a Rimage Banyuls, so a style of Banyuls for long aging in bottle, sort of akin to a vintage port. They also claim to be some of the first people to use large amounts of Syrah and Mourvedre in making a red Collioure still red wine. So pioneering in their way, and then in 2012 they were bought by the Cazes family, who have a policy of managing their vineyards biodynamically, and have done for 25 years now. Although I can't see any notes to say that this is a vineyard that is managed in that way. And you'd have thought since 2012, if they were in transition, they'd be able to do that. So I don't know what the situation there is. As far as the wine here is concerned, as I say, based on Grenache, so this is 80% Grenache Blanc and 20% Grenache Gris. And those are varieties that quite often exist throughout southern France in blends, things like white Chateauneuf du Pape and things like that, but rarely come into their own as single varietal wines, or even like this, just as two of them together. The wine is it's coming from, as I say, from these terroirs of really steep hillsides. You tend to get really low yields, because what you've got is a dry, warm environment, but influenced by the maritime influence from the Paulilles Bay. So you have these very steep vineyards getting really good sunlight and reflected sunlight from the sea, but not getting too warm, because they're all sort of valleys pointing towards the coast. And so you get morning and evening cooling, and sort of cooling winds coming up those valleys. As far as the winemaking is concerned, everything has to be handpicked. One, Grenache doesn't take to being machine harvested very well, and two, the vineyards are too steep on terraces. So everything is sort of trained to gobelet, sort of single vines, rather than being trained along wires, because if you're going up steep hills, it's easier to get around that sort of training. Picking, as I say, goes on by hand, happens early in the morning when it's cool, and so that you're not getting too much heat, which would promote oxidation in the wines. Fermentation takes place in a combination of concrete tanks and stainless steel tanks, concrete vats and stainless steel tanks. There's no oak influence. I very much doubt that there's malolactic conversion, because you're probably not getting any malic acid in these warm environment conditions. There's no oak aging. The wine stays in tank for 5 to 6 months, probably with its yeast lees to give a bit of richness and roundness, and is bottled relatively young. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we, and see what I make of this. As far as the colour is concerned, it's a fairly pale yellow. There may even be a greenish tinge to it. It's 2021, so you know, it's not the current release. I think that 2022 is the current release. So let's have a look at the aromas. The aromas are fresh and clean, and this suggests to me it's been fermented reasonably cool. You've got sort of notes of pear, apple, quince. There's a floral lifted perfume, and there are citric notes as well. So yeah, it's a fairly neutral style of wine, but behind it there's some sort of relatively rich fruit coming through. A little bit of maybe sort of candied peel, that sort of thing. Just for taste. On the palate, that's dry. It's relatively full-bodied, you know, medium to full-bodied. So no oak influence. So it's a lovely, juicy sort of pear, apple, quince sort of flavour notes there. There's almost a sort of a slightly honeyed richness to it. There are quite ripe elements there. There's almost as if there's just an orangey note coming through in the middle. Not quite, but you know, hinting at it. There's quite lovely, fresh, minerally acidity towards the end, and that's making me think of grapefruit actually. Not underripe grapefruit, but you know, relatively ripe grapefruit. Maybe that's where the orange, what I'm going with, the orangey sort of note there. And there are these sort of notes of floral perfume on the top notes as well. So this is a relatively weighty, relatively complex wine with balanced acidity. Alcohol is 14% evidently. It doesn't seem hot as a result of that, but you know, the wine has a reasonable weight, so that's contributing to that. I think it would be a very nice style of wine as a sort of a with an easy meal at lunchtime, that sort of thing, but it would stand up to cold white meats. It would stand up very happily to flavoursome cheeses, quiches, that sort of style of thing. Would partner really quite nicely with. There's a little bit of a slightly bitter texture. It's not. It doesn't in any way intrude unpleasantly, but it's adding a little bit of weight to the mid palate. Length is pretty good. Those that's when those grapefruit notes are suddenly becoming the notes of candied peel at the end, and there is the sort of the citric acidity is lasting and giving reasonable length. It's not massively long, but it's certainly not finishing quickly. And there's plenty going on in terms of the fruit richness there as well. So that was Clos de Paulilles Collioure 2021. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it interesting. Do please follow our channel. Do please like and share the videos. But most of all, make sure you join us again sometime soon. Bye now.